Greetings one and all to another Dark Rider Pony Analysis. I am the Nightmare Rider, Major Mine, reminding you, as always, that even a cheeseburger can be deconstructed to its original source. Continuing my running theme of making my videos partially into an Analysis 101 on top of critiquing episodes, the episode Filli Vanilli has generated quite a bit of discussion and debate among the Brony analyst community. This is mostly regarding limits when critiquing, primarily when it comes to the subject of whether character can be flawed yet still be in character. When I talk about character depth, I am talking about how many individual aspects of the personality there are within the character. Fluttershy's basic characteristic is that she is shy, but that is not the be-all end-all of her personality. She is shy, but she is also very kind and caring towards animals. On top of that, she can also be very harsh and strict when she feels her friends are in danger. The conflict of this episode is similar, yet different to that of Hurricane Fluttershy, mostly through the fact that this time around, Fluttershy has stage fright from something she is good at, in this case singing. This adds another couple of layers to her character. She loves to sing, but she is too scared to perform in front of other ponies. This is something that her friends learn and respect. For the most part. Yup, it's that time again. It's the age-old is Pinky being Flanderized game. Now, I had a debate on Tumblr with Josh Scorcher, aka Commander Firebrand, about this. The action in question is where Pinkie Pie shouts the details of Fluttershy's worst fears in her face. The contention here is about if this flaw in Pinky's behaviour can be excused by a known character flaw, or if she is acting differently to how she normally would. Remember what I said about character depth before? Well, in Pinky's case, it is very well true that she tends to miss subtle emotions in other ponies and sometimes gets carried away by how much she wants to have fun with them. However, there is a limit to this. Her defining character trait is that she wants to make other ponies smile, but when her actions cause other ponies to become harmed, both physically or emotionally, she becomes incredibly depressed. Harming other ponies is the exact opposite of what she wants to do in her life. We see this in episodes like Too Many Pinkie Pies or, most recently, Pinkie Pride. So, when she is shouting at Fluttershy, what is Fluttershy's reactions? She starts to cry and cower in fear, exactly like what happened in Bats. Now, this wouldn't be a problem if Pinkie Pie acknowledged she has gone too far and tried to fix it next time. The problem is, she doesn't do that. At all. At least 2 more times, despite her positive intentions, she keeps shouting at Fluttershy and making her feel more and more uncomfortable. Each time, she has the same response to her friends scolding her, which is the equivalent to, "What did I do wrong?" That is evidence for flanderization here. One aspect of her character is being exaggerated, while others are being ignored. I don't expect Pinky to be perfect, but given how she is in Griffin the Brush-Off, she refused to prank Fluttershy because she understands how sensitive she is. I think it's reasonable to expect Pinky to at least act like she has limits. This is inconsistent writing. Fluttershy, on the other hand, is developed almost perfectly in this episode. She starts out with an almost crippling fear, and the episode actually takes time away from the conflict to show how much she enjoys not just singing to herself, but the music of other ponies as well. As a side note, I love how Big Mac actually gets to sing as a bass vocalist for the a cappella quartet, the Ponytones. While the conflict is initiated in a somewhat of an odd way, given how Fluttershy remembers Zeccora's medical capabilities, on top of the fact that Rarity tries to find a compromise with Fluttershy so that the charity event can go on, speaks volumes to the relationship between Rarity and Fluttershy. Rarity never pressures Fluttershy into taking centre stage once she learns of how much stage fright Fluttershy has, and after Fluttershy refuses to do so. She listens carefully and considers Fluttershy's feelings at every occasion. This gives Fluttershy space to develop something that, in psychology, is called systematic desensitization. Essentially, if someone has a phobia, they are slowly exposed to a reduced form of that phobia. They gradually become more and more comfortable with each smaller level of that scenario until they can overcome their fear completely. We see this because Fluttershy really starts to enjoy singing backstage for Big Mac to mime, desiring to see the other ponies enjoy the performance while still being out of the spotlight directly. Speaking of spotlights, This is another point I would like to bring up. I've talked in the past about how certain critiques of an episode may be more or less valid depending what the focus is. A better analogy would be, what aspect of the episode is the spotlight on? Going back to the topic of Pinky slanderization, the spotlight in Castlemania was always squarely on the comedy aspect. Josh Haber wrote the episode to be a simple situation comedy with some minor world-building elements. Pinkie Pie was pretty dumb in that episode, but I see it as somewhat more forgivable since the episode was never trying to be a character study to begin with. I don't excuse it entirely, but it is less important based on what the episode is trying to do. Likewise, Filli Vanilli is a character-focused episode. The entire conflict is based around the fact that Fluttershy is trying to overcome an internal conflict that is based around a weakness in her character. The entire episode involved Rarity making sure that Fluttershy was comfortable with everything that was going on. So for Pinkie Pie to blatantly ignore this, even if she can be over-enthusiastic, is not excusable. If you are writing an episode where we are meant to be paying attention to how each character is behaving, it becomes a serious problem with a character as behaving differently to how they normally would supposed to be. Spike also gets the short end of the stick since he has resigned to one-note joke character again, although thankfully he is at least funny in a couple of scenes to make up for it. This is another criticism I want to bring up with the episode. Although it is a relatively minor one, I did find the pacing to be somewhat wonky in this episode. The setup was established well, and despite the fact that I understand why slowing down to focus on the ponytones was necessary, I found the scene was quite jarring on how pacing came to a sudden halt. Likewise, once the first show with the ponytones is over, the pacing speeds up again, with show after show of Fluttershy helping to sing for Big Mac, along with an increasing number of near misses. The deliverance of the moral itself to properly resolve the conflict took a while to get to as well. It would have greatly benefited from cutting a couple of Pinky's lines, at least, to get to the point a little faster. Honestly though, that's more of a nitpick than anything. It doesn't really cause a big problem because of the positive things along with it, so it isn't too bad. The best parts of this episode are towards the end. After we see exactly how Fluttershy reacts to stage fright, despite the crowd cheering for her in a positive manner, I expect Applejack to launch into the "give me an explanation for this" trope, with Rarity trying to justify the whole odd scenario. But instead, Applejack basically just repeats everything that just happened perfectly, giving us not just an amazing comedy moment, but showing just how wise Applejack was to the whole setup. The delivery of the moral is perfect too, as Fluttershy explains that while she has reduced her fear, she still isn't ready to put on a big performance in front of a large crowd. As many other analysts have no doubt said, the fact that she is taking her developed in baby steps is both incredibly mature and realistic. Not every fear is going to be resolved all at once, so it is amazing to have a kids show recognise that. Now for my final thoughts on this episode. Honestly, the biggest thing holding back this episode from being one of the best was Pinkie Pie. If she had been more sensitive to Fluttershy, then there would be much less debate as to how in character she is or not. But aside from that and the pacing, I really liked this episode. Rarity was the kindest I have seen her act in a long time. Seeing Fluttershy enjoy the singing was adorable, and the effective references to the previous episodes actually made the world feel more consistent, helping the episode's plot along instead of distracting from it as some tend to do. As such, I give Filli Vanilli a final grade of a B+. Until the next review, this is a Nightmare Rider, Major Mine, riding out.